slides here. I can just remove them. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to ISIL. I would like to say thank you not just for having me here today, but also for something that I'm going to talk about in the next couple of minutes. So before I go and talk about Students for Liberty, I just want to share a short personal story. And this personal story kind of started with the ISIL conference that happened 2 years ago in Volcano. Before that, just a couple of months before that, I first met Radovan Dirana from Ines in Slovakia, and over a couple of beers, as most of good things start, he invited me to a Language of Liberty conference, a Language of Liberty Institute camp in Slovakia. That was a very nice experience, and then I got invited to this conference in this place in Sicily, which sounded very, very interesting. I decided that I should go there, and that was my actually first libertarian conference I ever attended. So since then, in the past 2 years, I spoke on more than 20 libertarian conferences on 3 continents, and I don't think anything of that would happen if I didn't attend that conference in Volcano, and I cannot say how much I appreciate ISIL because of that. Anyway, that's where I met Frederick Röda, who spoke here on the second day. He invited me to this new thing he's starting in Europe in 2011, and it's going to be called European Students for Liberty. They're going to organize this conference in Belgium. They're not really sure how many people are going to attend, but he would like to see me there. I said, yeah, I'm going to give my best. It's cool, but some things are more important, like liberty. So I might actually go. And I did. And now I'm here. So just to start my presentation, so what happened before Students for Liberty in 2007 regarding student libertarian groups? It was basically like this. So of course there were some initiatives. Some groups existed, but those were usually just smaller student groups in a certain country or at a certain university. But it was not really, you couldn't say there's a libertarian student movement going on. That was my personal story. So what was the problem? There were just only a couple or very few opportunities for pro-liberty students to find like-minded students. You could have students in their university who kind of shared these ideas. They kind of Googled something and then ran into Mises or ran into an article by Rothbard, but they wouldn't really have anyone to talk with about these ideas. It was just something that in Europe was not so common. And they had, even if they wanted to do something, and even if they wanted to go out of the closet and talk about these issues, they couldn't do that. It was hard getting the right message across. It was hard starting an organization because you really didn't have an idea how that is supposed to be done. So they were largely left to just figure stuff on their own, maybe have a circle of a couple of friends who are interested in the same ideas, but not really a movement they can be a part of. Another problem is that politics just won't cut it. No single politician, no single political party. We don't think they're going to change things on their own. That hasn't really happened in the past. Well, that hasn't happened ever. That we can really say, yeah, this is a clearly libertarian policy. We believe that they just react to incentives and they will follow the changes in society. So we decided to start making that change in the society by interacting with students, by organizing them, and creating leaders. Not just in academia, not just creating a new group of intellectuals, but in every field possible. We do want new Rothbards, new Rands, new Hayeks and Miseses, but we also need people who are just interested in entrepreneurship, who are going to start their own businesses. We need students and then later young professionals who are going to get engaged in popular culture, who are going to spread the message across the world by, I don't know, being popular singers or popular actors. Why not? Also, nonprofits. Pretty much any field you can imagine. We want to have our our students and later professionals in that field. We definitely know it will take some time to change the common view that is held in the society. And we believe that our work can inspire others. Our students, which I will show later in just a couple of slides, have the passion, have the energy, and have the opportunity to work towards our ideals. And in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to show why Students for Liberty is a proof of this. So our theory is that there is no way to change the world without changing the ideas, which show how the world is conceptualized by other people. The best, if not the only way today, to change how people conceptualize that world is to empower students to learn about a free society. I can't express how important this is, and as I will try explaining later, the libertarian movement has never been stronger, and I like to think, of course, that a small part of that is due to everything Students for Liberty have done in the last couple of years. So just a quick pitch. Students for Liberty have been started in 2011. Our first event was in November 2011 in Leuven, which is just a small city close to Brussels. Since then, we got, in less than 2 years now, more than 160 groups in 35 countries in Europe. That's almost all countries in Europe. We have 51 local coordinators from 27 countries. Just finished our training in Gummersbach a couple of days ago. Yael and myself flew in from there. We have 70 local coordinators altogether. At this year's conference, which happened in March, also in Belgium, we had 365 attendees from 40 countries. And these conferences are not just important as an event where they would go and just listen to great talks and go back home and wait for the next conference. No, friendships have been started at these conferences. A lot of student organizations, a lot of later events that followed, and a lot of other things have been a result of these conferences. I can't express enough how important it is for students from Greece to meet their colleagues in Sweden, to meet their colleagues from Ukraine, to meet their colleagues from Serbia, who think about who conceptualize the world in the same way we do. That creates and builds a sense of community, a sense of being a part of a larger movement, and eventually that will create those people and those students, attracting even more people, attracting even more young professionals, and getting them involved in these ideas. So they're not left alone at their university thinking, I'm the only lunatic who thinks that government shouldn't prohibit me doing something. As I said, origins are from 2011. We had 20 student groups in summer 2011 prior to starting our first event. We have over 160 student groups today, and our growth is majorly facilitated by our regional directors who work on the ground in their own regions, promoting these ideas and attracting young students. We have a lot of seminar presentations, a lot of events. We try to basically attend any larger event we can find and get into in Europe or across the world. And we count a lot on people just talking about us. Because that word of mouth is still one of the best ways to send your message across. For this fall, we have 10 conferences planned. So you can see a list of conferences here. We have a conference in Rome, which is going to be in Italian, Milan, Italian, Sofia, Munich, Krakow, Stockholm, Belgrade, which I'm particularly proud of, and Maastricht. Also, we're going to have a conference in Manchester in the United Kingdom in October. I wrote Paris September 14th as something I would like to especially announce here. It's going to be Christian Michel is going to speak there. We're going to have a lot of great speakers. This conference is going to be in French, but it's going to be a great event, and I'm sure there's a lot of French speakers here. A train from Lausanne to Paris is not far away, and I'm sure that European Students for Liberty who have our team members there and Institut Copé will also be very happy to see you there and please, if you need any information regarding this, please ask me or Benoit. Yael is here as well. So this is our conference in 2013. You can see that we got a very full university room, the largest room they had, and we're probably going to have to change the venue this year because we just grew too much. So that was partially about European Students for Liberty, but as this is ISIL World Conference, I would just like to spend a couple of minutes talking about the movement of Students for Liberty, not just in Europe, but across the world. How it all started was in February 2008 at Columbia University. A couple of people who had a round table a couple of months before that decided to organize a Students for Liberty conference. It was planned for maybe 30 students. They didn't really expect more people to come and just attend this conference. But more than 100 students from 42 schools and 3 countries came to the conference. And that is the reason it wasn't called, after that, we didn't call it Students for Liberty Conference, but International Students for Liberty Conference. That was the reason, and that was the initial to start Students for Liberty as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We saw that these ideas are actually much more, you can see them much more in your society than we initially thought. So this is a picture from this year's Students for Liberty Conference, International Students for Liberty Conference in Washington, D.C. We had more than 1,400 students there. It was just amazing seeing all these young people from across the world just coming there, sharing their ideas, and talking about how are they going to improve liberty in their own region. How are they going to attract more students to the cause? We had a taping of the Stossel show there. We had more than 150 great speakers. And this is our annual event. It's going to happen from 14th to 16th February in 2014, Grand Hyatt Hotel in Washington, D.C. From everyone from Europe, attendance is free, so you're more than invited to come. But what I would like to talk about furthermore is how this movement is actually not only based in the Western civilization. This is a picture from our West African conference that happened in Nigeria only a couple of weeks ago. We had more than 350 students who came to this conference, who discussed the ideas. And what is important is that they've shown that the potential we have in the regions we weren't present a couple of years ago is incredible. This is the group that also organized a theater play of Jonathan Gullible, attracting more than 200 students just coming from across Africa to watch this play and learn more about free market ideas. Also, there was one incident, let's say, which was kind of connected with the government, and we had a bus coming from Ghana. We had a bus which was full of students, and then they got stopped at the border. It was a very difficult situation. After 48 hours, they wouldn't let them pass. They just asked for bribe and more bribes. We couldn't get those students in for the conference. At the end, by the help of our donors, we managed to pay the driver to get them back home. But this is one of the examples how dedicated these people are, because they could have gotten back after 2 or 3 hours, but they just waited for almost 2 days waiting to go to the conference. I like that. This is another example. This is from Venezuela. This is a free speech wall, but why Venezuela is important and why is Venezuela a country I want to talk about right now is because a year ago, we had our first conference in Venezuela. We had more than 80 students there. But of course, you know the political situation in Venezuela, and this was a couple of months before Hugo Chavez passed away. So it wasn't, and it still isn't, a really friendly place for libertarian ideas, as you might imagine. This conference couldn't be advertised. We couldn't go and give away flyers. Our members there couldn't just go to the media and talk about this conference. How it was organized? It was all organized through personal connections, just word of mouth and inviting people to go. But that wasn't it. It wasn't just a room which was there for them to attend. We had to organize shuttle buses, which would meet and then take our students to a location that was not disclosed before the event for security reasons. Nonetheless, that didn't stop more than 80 of our students to be there, listen to great talks, but at one point there were two government officials who entered the room. They spent 15 minutes there, browsed around a little bit, and then they left. Of course, that was, if you're living in Venezuela, that's a clear sign that something is not exactly all right. So that was at the end of the day. So our students there had to pack their stuff, pack their bags, and they just left. After that, a couple of minutes after that, a gang of motorbikers, showed up to the event. I don't know what would happen if our organizer there were not so cautious, but I'm kind of afraid to think about that. This is an event organized by a local group in Belgrade. This happened in June 2013, 2 months ago. So we had a lot of. This is all organized by students, by our student groups called Studenti za Slobodu, which means Students for Liberty translated to Serbian, and the Libertarian Club Libek, the other organization I work with. And it's the banner you can see there spells "Defend Your Wallet." So that was the first taxpayers' march organized in the Balkans. It attracted more than 400 students. We were on all major media in the country, and pretty much no one thought that would be possible. Person you can see, well, it's in the far right corner, but it's not important who the person is. He's one of the leaders of our student groups in Belgrade. Only 2 or 3 weeks before that, he was beaten by the Marxists. He was the guy who decided to freely talk about these ideas, start a group, bring speakers, and of course he had problems with that. Couple of weeks before that, we organized a promotion of the book by Frank. Is Frank Carson here? Oh, okay, never mind. But we organized a promotion of the Serbian translation of the book at the same university. We had 10 or 7 Marxists coming in and basically shouting things like fascists, we're gonna send you to gulags, and basically those are the kind of guys that have pictures of North Korean statesmen at their profile pictures on Facebook. So not a very pleasant crowd. We were kicked out of the university, but however, we managed to organize and just finish the promotion of the book in front of the building. Police came, nothing dangerous happened. But however, these are just some of the examples in what kind of situations our friends from Africa, our friends from Venezuela, our friends from India, and generally Asia worked in. What I want to come back to is that this is the most libertarian generation that has ever existed. We now have our regional executive boards in more than, in North America, in Brazil, and the whole Latin America. We're in the process of forming our executive board in Africa, and we're also going to have our first Indian Students for Liberty conference coming up in January. We have more than 500 leaders for liberty who are either executive board members, local coordinators, or charter team members across the world. We organized conferences which were attended by more than 10,000 people, 10,000 students only in the last year, including regional conferences and our annual conferences. We have more than 1,000 groups across the world, and this is the reason I feel that this is the most libertarian generation that has ever existed. Reasons for hope? There are so many of them. But the reason I'm talking about all this is those people, those students, my friends from all these countries who face not only problems with travels and needing visa, but their lives are in danger. Sometimes they cannot. We had situations where our students couldn't get back to their country, or they wouldn't let them exit the country. We had situations where they were seriously afraid for their lives. And this still happens, and it's not as uncommon as it may seem. When I think about these students, when I think about, we had a very inspiring talk at the beginning of this morning, but when I think about something like that, when I think about our students who are unable to go home for a couple of months to see their parents because they're afraid they might not be able to leave the country ever again. When I hear about our friends working in Azerbaijan or Pakistan or Israel, where we have had problems before, when I hear about our activists being being beaten and being threatened, I cannot go home, look at myself in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm too tired to write this email. I'm too tired to attend this conference, and I'm too tired to fly. And this is why I ask from you, if all of us would just, whenever we are tired, say, well, this is problematic. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. This happens a lot. But when I think about all these people, I cannot just give up. And I really do believe that Students for Liberty and all of the friends I work with and all that has happened because of the great things organizations like ISIL and many others have done in the past decades have done. I just cannot not believe that we are the kids that are going to change the world. It's just a question, are you with us? Thank you very much.
I like that we finish with this message of hope. We'll have a panel discussion with 3 of our speakers this morning, Sue and Dan, who from here, and Aleksandar don't go away. Unfortunately, Shin Dong-yuk could not stay, but Ken Schuler is going to address and say a few words on his behalf.
I was asked by Shin and his interpreter to make one announcement here. There's a protest that's going to be held on September the 22nd worldwide. As you may know, many tens of thousands of North Korean refugees have been returned by the Chinese government back to North Korea, which means, very, very hard conditions, maybe death, execution for themselves and many of their families. This has been an ongoing thing. When they escape from North Korea, they still have to make their way maybe all the way to Thailand or Laos or Vietnam before they can maybe get refugee status. They've been also there. So if you want to participate in that protest, it's going to be worldwide on September the 22nd to go to Chinese embassies around the world and to deliver letters of condemnation of this returning of refugees to North Korea. You could also probably try and advance the idea in your own countries to allow more refugees to be accepted, because then the Chinese government will be more likely to accept them and pass them along to other places if other countries are willing. Right now, only 159 North Koreans have been accepted in the United States, and certainly if the United States opened its borders, then it would be a lot harder for China to turn them back. So keep that in mind. We'll have information on the ISIL website about this protest when I get it from Shin, if you're interested in participating. That's all.
So we'll take questions from anyone of our some of the people in the audience, and then panelists can also dialogue themselves. Right.
A question primarily for Dan Whatever. Excuse me, I have a question
sorry.
first. Sorry. I'm asking questions too. Good. I think everyone can see me. It's about the first presentation of Miss Easton. What you said about why are women so appealed to daddy government and everything. I think it's also because feminism, or the movement of feminism, had a wrong perception of what is a fair society, what is an equal society of men and women, and what if today, like, we have not so many, like, there are no restrictions anymore, and what if, like, the situation we have now is what it is, a fair and equal society, and there are women who are entrepreneurs and are in leader positions and everything, but just not like 50%. And what it is just the true fact that it is. They just don't accept that maybe not so many women want to do that, and we have to accept that and go on with it. And what the other point was about feminism, what she said, like, we have to focus on what happens to women all around the world, how they treat them and everything. For me, that's not feminism. It's just human rights. They're just like everyone else. That doesn't matter if it's male or female. But I think, like, we have other topics today to talk about as women, but also as men, as a society altogether. And I wouldn't consider myself as a feminist, although I'm interested in these topics and it's important for myself. But it's just not the word I would ever use again, because it's just not what I feel like it is. And I think many women and many libertarian women feel the same about it.
Thank you. I agree with that, obviously. A couple of weeks ago, Prime Minister David Cameron was asked during an interview if he was a feminist, and he said, "I don't think I know what that is, but I don't think I am." And I think that's pretty much where a lot of us are. After all the things that we read about back in the 80s about women having it all, just a few months ago, the Atlantic Monthly magazine had a huge story called Why Women Can't Have It All. So I think that maybe we're coming to the end of that cycle. I see a lot of changes in the American society about women. One of the things I wanted to mention in the early part of my talk was affirmative action was this movement, and what happened because of it is that a lot of women who had the doors opened for them had people saying behind their backs, well, they wouldn't be here except for affirmative action, wink, wink, nod, nod. And that didn't help us at all either. What I'm worried about now is that a lot of women are already supporting Hillary Clinton for president, and they're doing it just because they think, well, now it's our turn, which I don't think is a very wise way to approach electing officials. So I hope that there's a whole new generation of libertarians coming up. I'm really enthused about that, and I hope a lot of them can redefine what women's role is in society and kind of bring more real liberation to all of us. Yeah, men can't have it all either. That's absolutely true. You can ask my husband.
So, question primarily for Dan Mitchell. I've been following a lot of your excellent work on the flat tax rate around the world, and I use a lot of the arguments when discussing with people. But it does seem that oftentimes when I bring up the example of this country that adopted a flat tax rate, people always say, well, these are either like tax haven type countries or former Soviet countries that are just starting a new system. So my question to you is, when do you think, and I know it's hard to act like you have a crystal ball, but I guess could you envision a major country adopting a flat tax rate? Because I do remember once during the primaries for the whatever the word they use for primaries in the UK for the Conservatives, they did bring up the flat tax rate, and in Germany I also heard that a few times. The FDP brought it up, but then I think Angela Merkel was scared of these people, so she told them to shut up. But I'd like to hear more about I guess first world industrialized countries that the flat tax rates initiatives there, if at all realistic in a decade or more.
The simple answer is that I wouldn't bet money on the flat tax in any Western country. It has been discussed in Denmark, it has been discussed in Germany, in the UK, in the US, but the odds of it happening, especially since we're now in an era where the baby boom generation is beginning to retire and the pressure, for the rest of my life, I fear that I'll be fighting tax increases. So I think we're going to be on defense on tax policy. Just that's an unfortunate reality. The good news is the statists are going to be on the defense about government spending, as I suggested in my presentation. The only genuinely Western country that has had a flat tax wasn't even a good example. It was Iceland, and they got rid of it. Although now I guess the center party is the conservative or free market party. They're back in power. I'm going to Iceland in early November, and they think that they'll get it back, but they had a 36% rate. So, would you rather have Singapore's progressive tax system with a top rate of 18 or 20%, or Iceland's flat tax of 36%? I mean, the reality is that the tax rate just has to be low, and you want to avoid double taxation and all that stuff. But then keep in mind that fiscal policy is just only one piece of the puzzle. You look at economic freedom of the world, there are 5 major factors. Fiscal policy is just 20% of a nation's grade. You have regulation, monetary policy, trade policy, rule of law and property rights. So yeah, I'm all in favor of the flat tax, but I'm mostly in favor of just restraining the burden of government, and that's a multifaceted exercise.
I'm glad to see from Aleksandar's speech that there are ever more young people participating in this movement. This is really great and certainly a reason for hope. What I would suggest to you is some kind of a Ponzi scheme. I think that almost 100% of us have got our ideas through books. You certainly have a first book or a second book or a preferred book which you have read to be really convinced of this movement. I suggest to you to make a gift every, let's say, 2 books of your preferred books every year to somebody with a suggestion, if they like it, to buy 2 books, to give it to somebody else. So, and put it with a short paper to whom you're giving it, and with a suggestion to give a gift of other 2 books to somebody, a book to 2 other people, and with it, let's say, to give a list of 4 or 5 other books or 10 other books which you liked most and which you influenced most. So please, this I think would be a very good Ponzi scheme.
Can I Thank you. Thank you so much for the idea. This is something I personally do, and as for Students for Liberty, we have 3 books that are out so far. One is called Morality of Capitalism, the French version. I think there are some books left here. The second one is After the Welfare State. In the previous year, we gave away more than 35,000 books across Europe. And it's just coming out of the print. It's actually being shipped from the US today. I saw the email last night. 350,000 books are being shipped from, are actually out of print and are going to be given away to students across the world. So this is